Welcome to the Nissan Global Media Center. I'm Dan Sloan. Joining me in the studio is Executive Vice President Andy Palmer. Andy, thanks very much and welcome as well. Specifically, we're going to look at some business sectors shortly, but can you tell us a bit behind the thinking of creating a Global Media Center and what you see it doing for the brands?
Hi, Dan. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to the Media Center. And it is clearly a terrific state-of-the-art center that we get here, which I think, apart from helping us make messages, it's also very much a symbol of our midterm plan of the Power 88, and the power being one of brand power and, of course, sales power. So I think we need to talk about the Media Center in the context of brand power and how telling stories is so important to elevating the brand. So midterm plan says we have to elevate, improve our brand. What does that really mean? That really means that we can charge a higher price, transaction price for our cars, and we can gain a higher volume, something that maybe traditionally we thought was a trade-off. We need to be able to do both. Now, how do you do that practically? Well, one of the things that you have to do is you have to tell compelling stories about the company, about the employees, about the products, and something that basically resonates, and of course in our case resonates towards innovation and excitement for everyone. So the Media Center is really a medium, a very compelling medium that allows us to tell our stories in the way that we'd like to tell them, basically either internally or very compellingly externally.
Certainly corporations, car makers talk a little bit about raising the brand value. There are many metrics out there for whether that's being achieved or not. Looking at Power 88, where do you see this ultimately leading the brand?
Well, you're right, and we've all read the textbooks that give the complicated equations about what brand is and how you improve brand and what the levers are. I try to boil it down to something very, very simple. If you can charge the price for the car that's equivalent to the best guy in the marketplace, and you can achieve his level of volumes at the same time, transaction price times volume, or transaction price times market share, that has to show that the brand is equal to the best in the market. Today we have a deficit. Today it's clear that either by volume in some subsegments or by transaction price, there's a deficit. And if we were to look at that deficit compared to the best of the best, that deficit is $6 billion. That's $6 billion of additional profit that we could bring if we could be the best of the best in every segment. Now, that's probably unrealistic, but at the top level of the company, as you look at the macro, if we can be amongst the best brands, means that we can, generally speaking, close that revenue parity gap during the term of the midterm plan by 2016, it's worth a heck of a lot of money on our bottom line, and that's what we've got to do. So now knowing that we need to push volume and we need to push price together simultaneously, what are the kind of things that you need to do? I mean, clearly your products need to be great, but also there needs to be a clear linkage between the product story and the way that you tell that story to the consumer, so that you raise the appeal not only of the product itself, but also the appeal of the company and what you're buying into. Let's put it another way. We're great at monozukuri. I believe that the Japanese word is kotozukuri, the science or art of storytelling, and we need to bring our kotozukuri at the level of our monozukuri inside the company.
Andy, certainly Infiniti is a key element of that strategy. There are areas like China where huge growth potential and obviously sales potential. What's the latest from that key market?
Well, Infiniti is clearly one of the key parts of our midterm plan. It's important because it's an area of the market which is growing. I think luxury more or less represents about 10% of the global TIV, but it represents about 35% of the total profit in the industry. So clearly we want to be in that segment because it's an important segment to be in. It's also an opportunity for us to demonstrate our monozukuri talents. We can put our best technologies into Infiniti. Now, Infiniti is a 20-year-old story, but most of that period of time has been United States based. The question now is, can we take Infiniti on a global level? And obviously, over the last couple of years, we've been starting to do that. Now, China is a good example. China it's a carte blanche, a white piece of paper. We can create the story, we can create the brand image from the beginning. 2009, we sold 5,000 cars, more or less, in China. 2010, we sold 11,000 cars. This year, I believe, in spite of the earthquake, we'll sell over 20,000 cars. And I'm already in dialogue with our Infiniti colleagues in China for next year. I believe it's going to be around 35,000 units. So the growth potential is very high. When I talk to some of our internal consultants, the likes of Jim Press, spend a lot of time in China, he honestly also believes that we're getting resonance there. We're getting people talking about the brand, and we're probably in a better place than certainly Honda, Acura, and Toyota, Lexus. So I think we really have a good chance. And China should be one of the three pillars of the Infiniti brand.
For Infiniti in China or globally, is volume an issue, or being able to make that many cars?
Volume is not an issue, and we shouldn't push volume. I mean, volume should be a consequence of doing the job right. I'd much rather talk about turnover or overall profitability in the case of luxury. But there is obviously within there you have to sell a reasonable volume. Broadly speaking, we see 500,000 as a realistic number. All done well, all the consequence of treating the brand correctly. Is there an issue with capacity? No, we have capacity, and with the plans that we have, we can make those cars. Of course, chiefly in Tochigi, but also in other places around the world.
Andy, looking ahead, we have the Frankfurt Motor Show later this month. Infiniti will certainly be there. What's on tap?
Well, I'm really excited about Frankfurt. We're going to be taking the FX into the middle of Germany, which of course is the home of luxury, up there against BMW and Mercedes and Audi. We're going to have Sebastian Vettel on the stand, the German national, the world champion, and he's going to be presenting the Sebastian Vettel Special FX. I think that is a story all by itself. Last year's world champion, probably this year's world champion, a German national in the middle of Germany at the premier German show, basically talking about Infiniti and how he's helped to design his version of the FX. Great story, huh?
Well, we've tried to tell it already, but just for a little bit more insight, the Red Bull relationship began before this season. Obviously, you're going in with the reigning Constructors' Cup champion, as well as the reigning driver, looking pretty good for 2011. How far do you see this relationship going, and what has Vettel meant for the brand?
Well, I think, first of all, it's worth mentioning why did we go into Formula One? You know, when you look at most watched things on TV, you normally come down to kind of three types of events. You've got the Olympics, you've got World Cup soccer, and you've got Formula One. So in terms of reach, Formula One is one of the ways of getting at an awful lot of people. I think during one season, over 500 million people watch Formula One. Now, if you can get your brand in front of those fans, obviously you're elevating the unaided awareness of the brand. And the big problem that we had with Infiniti, particularly in emerging market, is that people simply didn't know what Infiniti was. So Formula One was chosen as a way of getting people to see the Infiniti mark and start asking questions. What's this Infiniti? Then obviously the next point is to make the linkage between that and the great cars that we have. And we know that if we can get people to drive Infinitis, we have a very good chance of selling them. So Formula One is very good at that. It's very interesting that when you look at the most visible brands in Formula One for this season, you've got Red Bull number 1, you've got Vodafone number 2, and either Total or Infiniti is number 3. So as a car manufacturer, we're the most visible car manufacturer in Formula One, which for our first season out there is great. Now, are we going to continue the relationship? Well, yes, certainly for next year. We signed up to a 2-year deal. We have options to consider that beyond there. But I think we have to look at, we always have to look at Formula One not as the joy of going racing, but simply as a marketing platform. I think we'll continue to work with Formula One as long as we need to raise the unaided awareness of the brand.
For brand identification, certainly EV and zero-emission technology has been a key facet. if you could, we know what's out there for first-generation vehicles, but what might be coming in the pipeline?
Well, yeah, I mean, you draw a good parallel. It's everybody, I think, clearly understands that we want to be a leader in zero emissions, and obviously with the Leaf, I think this month or next month we become the largest seller of EVs ever. So I think we've made the point that we're the EV leader. Now, where do we go in EV terms? Well, we know that there's 3 more cars coming. We know that there are other technologies associated with EVs. Discharging is the most obvious one right now, the ability to run your house from the battery of your car. But other technologies are coming. Contactless charging is an interesting technology that's coming. The program director is running a project on fast chargers, making fast chargers in-house. So there's a lot of technologies and opportunities that we have in the zero emission space. Now, what's interesting is how do you link zero emissions back to the main portfolio? Historically, we've been very good at making nameplates. People know the GTR, people know the Patrol, people know the Micra. How do you bring that back so that it resonates the brand? And I think we had the possibility of repeating our errors with zero emissions. So we had to make the link back to Nissan. So first of all, you'll always see the Leaf stated as the Nissan Leaf. But we've also associated now the technologies, particularly the battery technology, with the rest of the portfolio through the branding of Pure Drive. And Pure Drive is about bringing the most advanced technology to make sure that we're in the leading group as far as good emissions, low CO2 is concerned. So we want about 50% of our portfolio to be Pure Drive badged, and that makes the linkage between the technology that we champion with zero emissions and bringing that technology back into the main brand and linking it all together so that when we talk about the Leaf, it's clearly part of the Nissan portfolio, part of the Nissan brand.
And we've certainly seen that extend to Nismo RC Leaf, so even motorsports with the kind of EV zero emissions flavor.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to be clear that we don't go to motorsport because we like racing cars. We go to motorsport because it's a proof point towards the brand. If the brand stands for innovation and excitement for everyone, then everything that we do in function of that should be proof. So, winning LMP2, the Le Mans series this year, is about demonstrating durability of our engines and excitement of driving our cars, the innovation in the engine, the excitement of racing. The Leaf RC car is it's a proof of our ability to innovate.
Well, let's talk a little bit about infrastructure. Nissan wanted to be a leader in the EV space. But it's a little bit different than if you build it, they will come. You need partners to make sure that by making the cars, there's going to be infrastructure available.
Yeah.
How are you perceiving, not only in Japan, but globally, the rollout of things like chargers or battery production, and what can be expected in the future in terms of the technologies?
Well, that's been the real challenge of the zero emission strategy, because you're right, you can't just put a car out there and expect it to sell. And there are advantages in being the leader, the vanguard of zero emissions. You're the first out there, you help your brand. But the downside is you also have to do all of the hard work associated with the infrastructure. So clearly 3-4 years ago we started the Connections program. I certainly can say in my career that I've never worked with such a diverse group of individuals, with governments, with utility companies, with infrastructure companies, with taxi companies in New York as an example. So it's certainly a different type of business. I think the onus is on us as the leader to try and put those infrastructures in place. And I guess it's fair to say you can see the criticisms about rollout. During the summer vacations, I was involved in a big debate with Top Gear about there being no infrastructure in the United Kingdom. The point is that we're the first point of contact when it comes to talking about zero emissions. So the fact that we're criticised in Top Gear, for example, is good, because they come to us, we engaged in the debate, and then we can help raise the awareness of the infrastructure issue. Now, there are other things that we can do. You know, we're running a program right now on putting in-house assembled, in-house built quick chargers. What does that do? Well, that, for example, moves the price point for a quick charger. Today, a quick charger is probably $40,000 or $50,000. With doing it in-house, we think that we can get it down to $3,000 or $4,000. Changes the paradigm completely and starts some competition outside, but also allows us to go to governments and say, well, you know, we can donate or we can sell you some quick chargers, but you need to be committed to having the car parking space, connecting it to the electrical supply. So it allows us to you know, be a little bit more aggressive in that relationship with governments, utilities, telephone companies, etc., etc.
Finally, just looking out from here, developing, manufacturing automobiles doesn't happen in a vacuum. External factors, be it the yen or economic conditions, will certainly be an issue to the degree that it kind of either affects upstream or downstream decision making. How do you perceive either the strong yen or still some jitters about the global economic situation?
Well, I think always, I mean, the planning group and the planning group its job is to try and steer a course through all of the vagaries that one sees. So we try not to make knee-jerk reactions to, you know, the yen is doing this, or the European economy is doing this, or the American economy is trying to do this. But of course, we're trying to look at long-term trends, and based on long-term trends, trying to anticipate what the correct manufacturing footprint is, where we see growth in markets, you know, where are the future places that we should be building cars. A good example, you know, one of the big growing markets is in Brazil. Our presence in Brazil is quite small, you know, just a little over 1% market share. If we want to put some foot on the gas and accelerate our position in Brazil, we both need to look at the ability to manufacture cars in Brazil and also our ability to raise the profile of the brand in Brazil, and we're working on both of those. But we're not going to react, you know, dramatically to the yen where it is today. But of course, we have to be cognizant of the trend of the yen, and we need to plan in function. And then, you know, day by day, we may see some adjustments in what one can do. But generally speaking, we try to keep a fairly consistent view of what we think is going to happen. I certainly hope, for example, that the yen doesn't stay as strong as it is today. That's not what our long-term planning says, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that today it's a problem.
Energy prices have come back a bit,
yeah,
but are still pretty strong. Does that, to some degree, further create a catalyst for people to consider EVs or zero?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, once you start to talk about gas being over, you know, $80 or oil being over $80 a barrel, that's really what we think is the inflection point of where it starts to have a real interest. So we're good. I mean, we're good if we stay with cheaper energy prices. We've got the cars that we have. As energy prices increase, and inevitably they will increase, then it starts to play to our strength as well with pure drive and of course with zero emissions. And you only need a crisis, you know, of the nature of, for example, oil spillages that we've seen in the past, or of sudden hikes in the cost of energy or oil, and that puts us top of the agenda.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Executive Vice President Andy Palmer, thank you very much for your time and comments today.
Thanks, Dan.
For Media Center, I'm Dan Sloan.